Welcome to the Diamond Hands podcast, where medicine meets momentum and branding becomes a leadership system. I'm Tracey co-founder of Diamond Hands Media. I build aesthetic brands that lead, with a background in employee benefits and business finance, so brand becomes authority and asset value. This is mindset, money, and marketing for founders building brands that run without them. Because brand isn't a logo, it's how you lead. So welcome to another episode of the Diamond Hands podcast. So I'm Tracey, and I am your host, and I'm actually talking today. And so this episode is really about attracting high value luxury level patients. And so if you're not interested in attracting premium, high value luxury level patients, you probably want to close this episode right now. And I mean that, but this is not for everyone, and I'm not going to pretend that it is. And so if you're okay with competing on price, running promotions, and wondering why your consultations do not convert, this episode will frustrate you. And again, I'll say close it. But if you've been doing everything right on paper, the training, the space, the aesthetic, and something is still not landing with the caliber of patient you should be attracting, stay with me, because what I'm about to tell you will change how you see your entire brand. What you put out is a signal, and your signal is attracting exactly who it should, just not who you think. And so I want to start with something from, Capfer and Bastian's landmark work on luxury strategy. And they wrote the book quite literally on how luxury brands actually operate. And it's been something that I've been kind of delving into. And the very first anti-law that they identify is forget about the positioning. Luxury is not comparative. So let me say that again, for those of you listening, luxury is not competitive. And so in conventional marketing, you are taught to find your unique selling proposition. And, that's still something, but what makes you different from the practice down the street? You offer this, they offer that. You are better because of this and that, but luxury brands actually don't do that. So Capper and Bastian, they write about luxury, and they say that luxury actually makes a very bold statement. This is what I am, not that this depends on that, not compared to our competitors. This is what I am. And let's talk about the I am for a second, because when I talk about the I am, I get very excited, because when we are in I am and when we are in the I am state, this is when we are like clay. Whatever you say about yourself behind the I am is what you are becoming and what you think you are. So I am confident, I am disciplined, I am focused, I remember, and I am, and that's what I'm becoming. Do I have everything perfect? Obviously not. But it's a progress, it's a journey. I remember when I was a young woman in sales, when I started out in the financial planning space, and I had gotten a bracelet made, and this is about, I don't know, 10 years ago, and it had said CDF. And for me, every time I looked at that bracelet and I looked at what was engraved on it, I thought in my brain, confident, disciplined, focused. And so even though it's still kind of a struggle every day because I have ADHD, many people, when they think of me, they think, oh, Leslie's confident, she's disciplined, she's focused, because it's an energy signal that I've been putting out into the world and putting out in how I do things, right? And it's very interesting. So now I want to ask you to do this. Take a look at your Instagram, right? Take a look at your website. Is it making a declaration, or is it just making a comparison? Is it saying this is who we are and this is what we believe? Or is it trying to desperately prove that you're better than somebody else? And what I want to say is that high value patients, they really do feel that difference immediately. They don't know why your feed makes them feel slightly uncertain. They just move on. And the practices that attract the highest value patients are not the ones with the most credentials listed in their bio, even though that's important. Credentialing is very important, but they're the ones who communicate with such clarity and confidence about who they are that the right patient immediately feels, ooh, this is my place, right? And I like to think about this because it even goes down into the music that you choose for your reels, or that your a media person chooses for the reels. Goes down to what colors you show up in. It goes down into how you show up. Are you showing up polished or a little chaotic? Being a little chaotic could be part of your brand, but again, that's not luxury positioning, right? And so you have to really think about what you're putting out there and what it might be attracting. And so the brands that are attracting luxury or premium patients, because those are slightly different, but they're the ones that are communicating with such clarity and confidence about who they are that the right patient immediately feels, this is my place. And I think I said that already, but this is a declaration, not a comparison. And so I want to ask you, are you making one? And so let's get into the anti-laws, because the anti-laws are something that Kapfer talks about in his writing. The first one is keep non-enthusiasts out. There's 24 laws. We're only going to go through 4 today, but anti-law 4 is keep non-enthusiasts out. And it might seem pretty counterintuitive. And I really need you to listen to this one. So Kapfer and Bastian's fourth anti-law is keep non-enthusiasts out. In traditional marketing, the goal is reach. Get in front of as many people as possible. Cast a wide net. The more people who see your brand, the better. Luxury actually does the opposite. Luxury intentionally signals to some people that this is not for them. And so, how can you do that? How do you say this is not for you? We are living in a society where people think that we have to be for everybody, but we're not. I am sure you sat across from a patient who is getting on your last nerves, who doesn't trust your guidance, and you're wondering, why am I serving this person? I can't remember the quote, but who said it is basically, life is very short. You want to ensure that you're doing business with people that you actually like. And if you're thinking of premium and luxury positioning in your business is actually a club. And you have to be so discerning about who you want to attract, because premium and luxury clients are going to stay with you a much longer time than those who are going to be price shopping and doing all those things and just waiting for you to have the next sale. Think about Hermes, right? They do not run promotions. They do not have a sales page. They do not make it easy to walk in and buy a Birkin. Okay, I don't buy any of this stuff, but I know people who do. And famously, this is an entire relationship before that you have to build with them before you're even offered one. And the friction is actually not failure in their marketing. The friction is their marketing. And I'm not going to say you want to make your practice impossible to access. That's not what I'm saying here. But I'm asking you, does your brand make any signal at all that it communicates standards? Does it communicate selectivity? And that says in any way that we are not for everyone and we are proud of that. Or does everything in your marketing try to be as accessible, as approachable, or as non-threatening as possible because you're afraid that if you put up any standard at all, that you will lose patients? So here's what actually happens when you lower every barrier to seem approachable. You attract the patients who need every barrier lowered. And then you wonder why they negotiate on price, they cancel last minute, and they do not refer any of their friends. And so the high value patient is not looking for easy. They are looking for something that they feel worthy of putting their hard-earned dollars or their husband's dollars or their wife's dollars into, right? They want to feel that getting into your practice actually means something. Or maybe in your practice is getting in at a certain level means something. And that they are in a room that not everybody can just get into. And are you giving them that feeling, or are you leaving the door wide open and saying, or hoping rather, for the right people to walk through? And now, anti-law 8, protect clients from non-clients. I am really big on this because I don't publish my client list, for a reason. Do I have some logos listed on the website? Yes, to show you these are some names that we've worked with or happy to show that we're credible, obviously. But every time I'm on a shoot, every time that I'm working with someone, I don't put it out there because, some of our clients do pay a lot of money to work with us and they're at very high levels and they might not want anyone to know who their personal brand advisors are. And that's fine. It doesn't matter to me, but protect clients from non-clients. And this is the one I think about the most when I am working with practices at the brand level and from the big to the small. So, what does this mean in practice? It means your highest value patients should never, ever feel that they are in the same experience as everyone else. And so, think about the last time that you flew first class or stayed at a genuinely luxury hotel. Part of what you were paying for, whether you consciously knew it or not, was separation. We no longer live in a class system. However, we do notice this. You get on the plane, there's the first class section, there's business class, then there's the regulars. I sit in the regular section a lot. I'm not even going to play, but I have experienced both. But you think about it, there's a separation, a different entrance, a different lounge, a different level of attention. You notice when you're walking down the aisle, they're already getting their wine. You were not in the general queue. You're protected from it. Now think about your practice. When your highest value patients walk in, are they treated differently than someone who found you through a Groupon 3 years ago? Is their experience architecturally different? Or does everyone get the same intake form, the same waiting area, the same front desk script? And I want to bring some research in from McKinsey. So McKinsey research tells us that 85% of ultra high net worth customers prioritize authentic brand narratives over traditional advertising. However, there's something deeper here. Research on ultra high net worth individuals specifically finds that for this group, the most important dimension of a luxury experience is functional value. And the most critical factors are convenience and time. And so your highest value patient's time is obviously their most precious asset because they're not wasting it. Every minute they wait, every redundant form they fill out, every moment they feel like they are being processed rather than held is a signal. I'll never forget a practice that I was working with, and they had so many forms. Every time a patient came in, they had to fill out all of these forms. Like it was like every time. And it was almost like, why can't you have this form that's good for a year? Or if you need to do it for a medical purpose every single year or every 6 months or have you for this procedure, why don't you have some of it pre-filled for them? And I remember one time I was in the practice and one of their patients were actually screaming at the top of their lungs. And it's a good thing I was there. I was able to just de-escalate it in a private room, talk to that patient, and I wasn't in any position to change what the doctor was doing, right? But this was a very serious situation. But that person was going to them for such a long time, and obviously this person, because this practice was changing their practice management software, like literally, like probably every 8-9 months, and they had like maybe 3 or 4 that they went through. They didn't feel held. They felt like there was no luxury experience there. Nothing was pre-filled for them. It was quite an experience, but that was a signal. And that signal says we don't care about your experience here. But going back to what I was saying, protecting clients from non-clients, it doesn't really require a separate entrance. It just requires a separate level of attention. So in that situation, if it was my practice, what I would have done, I would have said, okay, this is really annoying. We're changing our software all the time. Instead of putting all of that extra work on the patients to fill out forms anew, let's pre-fill out as much of these forms as we can for the patients, maybe the night before, pay someone extra until we get everyone through the system to pre-fill out the form and have it waiting for the patient. So when they come in, we say, hey, we just got a new system. We love that you've been coming to us for the past 5 years. We kind of pre-filled everything. Let me just talk with you. Has this changed? Has that changed? No, no, no. All right, great. Just sign here and make it very frictionless, right? That's just a practical example. But, what high value interactions that your patients really requires is that your team knows who your high value patients are and treats every touch point of their experience differently. I do believe that if someone is investing 15, 20, $30,000 a year in their practice, they should be getting a different experience. They should be getting expedited booking if they need to. Maybe you have a day in the calendar that's only for VIPs, and that won't be everyone, but it might be 20% of your patients that are really investing in themselves with you. Most practices have not done this. You can have a great clinical experience and you could have a generic brand experience. And that gap is exactly where the high value patient eventually slips out. And the last anti-law that I want to talk about today is the one that is going to make some of you uncomfortable. And that's anti-law 3. Do not pander to your patient's wishes. So again, conventional marketing says, find out what your customer wants and give it to them. Survey them. Ask them what they want to see more of. Build your content strategy around what gets the most engagement. That's for the algorithm. That's not really for patients. But luxury brands do the opposite. They build around what they believe. So even if you look at Chanel's website or Hermes's website, or rather Instagram, if you notice, they might get as many comments as you do. They might only get 15, 20 comments, but they're not pandering because they know that their people are going to find them and they're finding a standard. And what the creative vision tells them is true, beautiful, and worth doing, regardless of whether the market is asking for it yet, is a thing. And right here in my notes, Steve Jobs, he famously said that customers do not know what they want until you show it to them. And luxury brands have known this for centuries. And now look at your content strategy. Are you posting what you believe? Or are you posting what you think people want to see? Those are two different things. Are you sharing your actual clinical philosophy and aesthetic point of view? Or are you posting before and afters because you know they perform? And so here's the thing about before and afters. They're great. They're amazing. You need them. They perform with everyone. They are content equivalent of a crowded waiting room. Everyone can access them. Everyone responds to them, which means they attract everyone, including the patients that you're not trying to attract, because it doesn't matter if someone's high value or there's someone who is a Groupon enthusiast. They both want to look good. And the practices that command the highest fees that I've seen in my experience and attract the most discerning patients are the ones whose media makes you feel like you are seeing inside the mind of someone who has an extraordinarily specific and unwavering point of view on beauty, aging, and what their role is in a patient's life. And so what I do also see is that content doesn't always get the most likes, but it does get the right ones. And this is the important thing. It gets the patient who reads your caption and thinks, this person sees something that I have not been able to articulate about myself. I need to be in that room. And so that is a signal. And it's really the most powerful kind. And so let me just kind of bring it together. There's 4 anti-laws, and there's 4 places your signal is either working for you or working against you. And you are not positioning. If you want premium and luxury patients, you are declaring, or you should be. And you're keeping non-enthusiasts out with clarity and standards of your brand. Or, you're leaving the door opening, you're leaving the door open and you're wondering who keeps walking through it. And I'm not going to sit here and pretend that I'm immune to that. I actually dealt with that quite a bit because, as you know, I started, Diamond Hands Media with my husband and partner in 2019. And I kind of was just doing things for the algorithm. I was like, oh, I notice when I do this, I get more interaction. I notice when I do this, I get more interaction. But then I was also attracting people who were like, okay, let me just break you down in your price, this, that, I don't want this. And I was attracting people who weren't serious about themselves. I was attracting people who wanted to be very reactive and wanted to just do those things that are just very trendy, or they were just following what the person of the street was doing and they didn't have anything that was substantial, right? And it was very frustrating. But once I got very, very clear on who we wanted to attract we think long game now, and who we want to work with, what we want to be known for. What has been true for us is that the more I know who I am, the more I know what I won't tolerate, the more that I know what type of clients I want to have, the more those people actually have come to us and have been attracted to us. And it takes a lot to be someone who, started. And my first client, I think my first contract in Diamond Hands Media might have been like, I don't know, $600. Might have been like $600 or $800. And to think it's like to go from that to a client contract being, $80,000 or $90,000. It's just completely different, right? And so you are protecting your best clients from a generic experience, or everyone is going to get the same thing and your highest value patient will feel it. And again, with that, I treat clients who are at our highest tiers different than those that are just doing our regular tiers. And it's not a matter of I treat one badly and another one good. No, it's just like the person who's on our highest tier is going to get a little bit, either going to get more time with me. They're going to get different things can be done for them because they're investing more. Right? So it's just different. And I think you need to make sure that you're doing that also in your patient journey and discerning between different types of people. So you're really building your belief and your vision, and you want to build from a place that is completely yours. And the medical aesthetics market, as we know from like AmSpa and things, is like it's like a $20 billion industry, and it's growing 8% every single year. And there is really no shortage of patients, which is the cool thing. We're all aging. The question is never whether high value patients exist. The question is whether your signal is legible to them. And I love what Grant Cardone says. He says, "Who has my money?" And I think that's really cool. It's like, who has my money? And you think about that and then build the infrastructure for yourself. If you're a mom, if you have a lot of responsibilities, if you can get help, get someone to help you clean your house, get someone to do your laundry or drop it off at a laundry service, get someone to help you cook dinners, or get one of those cool dinner services that you can order, order your groceries online, have someone clean your house. Have a personal assistant that's outside of someone who works with you, a personal assistant that pays your bills for you, is your personal bookkeeper, not for your business, but for yourself. Do these things. And so you'll be in a better headspace to be coherent, to be at peace, and to think about yourself in a clearer headed way so that you can serve all of your patients, including the very, very high value ones, at a very coherent, consistent level. And, fix the signal. And again, like I said, there is no shortage of patients. Fix the signal. The patients will follow. And again, I'm Tracey, and this is the Diamond Hands podcast. And so if this episode made you see your practice differently, share it with one person that needs to hear it today. And if you want to know what your signal is actually saying, you know where to find me. All right, take care. Bye.
Want more clarity like this? Join the Branded Practice newsletter community. I write about strategy, systems, and brand leadership straight to your inbox. Go to diamondhandsmedia.com to sign up. And if this episode hit, share it with someone still building without a brand. This is the Diamond Hands podcast. Thanks for listening. Now go lead.